Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of Board of Zoning to order at 6:31. Would everyone please rise for the pledge? Okay, let's see here. Make sure all of our members have their mics turned on. All right, so I don't mess this up again. Adam, are there any additions or corrections to tonight's agenda?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Has the board have an opportunity to look over last month's meeting minutes? And if so, do you have any additions or corrections? All right, then I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the minutes for June 29th.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, minutes pass. Okay. We have one case on the docket tonight. It's old business that was carried over from our June meeting. And this is Variance 07-2023, located at 533 Swan Drive, metal pole barn garage. Adam, do you have a presentation for us?
I do. All right, speaking for the record, I'm Adam Zaklikowski, the Planning and Building Director for the town of Fortville. So for this particular case, we can pretty much start where we left off. I don't need to rehash any of the details unless you need me to, but what I'll bring you all up to speed on are is basically what's happened since the last meeting. So first, what I did was one of the questions that came up from the board at the last meeting is you wanted to know which clauses from the zoning ordinance took effect in 2020 and which ones took effect in 2023, just for your background information. So all of the clauses took effect in 2023 in January, with the exception of this item, that the height of the accessory structure cannot exceed the height of the principal structure. And in this particular case, it's about it's only about a 5-foot difference. Secondly, at the last meeting, the reason for the continuance was to have a meeting with the neighbors to discuss the project and to hopefully arrive at some sort of compromise for your review. And so a neighbors meeting was held here at Town Hall on July 19th. And the applicant invited neighbors most impacted by the project, basically the southwest portion of the neighborhood, the owners along Swan Drive, south of Sandra Drive, and along Bridge Court, in order to have a productive discussion. And there were 12 neighbors that attended. Most, but not all, wanted the structure to be demolished. However, if the building could not be demolished, they generally agreed on the following upgrades and wanted it completed as soon as possible. Items such as the colors of the building should match the house. A brick wainscot should be added. Plant arborvitae around it to screen and lower the height by 5 feet. Mr. Burgess was amenable to making the improvements, but he wanted to research the costs. So from that, based on that meeting, my recommendation is to approve the variances subject to the following conditions. Number one, the color of the building shall be brown. to match the color of the house. Number 2, a 4-foot tall brick wainscot shall be added at the base of the building around all sides, and the brick shall match such used on the home. Number 3, arborvitae shall be planted 3 feet on center around the side and rear of the building. Number 4, the height of the building shall be lowered by 5 feet. And then number 5, the petitioner or his designee shall file a complete building permit submittal, and the building shall be finished by December 1st, 2023. So if you were inclined to approve those conditions, you could, if you were inclined to approve them as written, you could say something to the effect of, we approve subject to the 5 points in the staff report. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them. Thank you.
Okay, I do have one. So you said the only difference between the 2020 and the 2023 codes are that the height can't exceed the primary structure was on there in 2020. And
Correct.
everything else was added in 2023.
That's correct. That particular height clause was in a completely different section of the code that did not apply, that was not under the accessory structures portion, which also lists height. And so as we know, the builder attested on their application that they comply with all the standards. And so that's what led to the issues that we're faced with here today. But regardless, in terms of the height, based on the neighbor's comments, Mr. Burgess did seem willing to lower it by 5 feet.
Okay. Can you remind us what is the, not just the square footage, but what is the size of the building, like length and width? Do you have that?
I do. Let's see. It doesn't show up on that exhibit clearly. I can tell you the square footage.
It's pretty.
Yeah, 3,200 square feet overall. And so to be very clear, back in, but back prior to 2023, there was no regulation on the maximum size of a structure like this. There now is. There was not at the time. And then secondly, in terms of the overall size, again, there was no requirement at the time in 2020 restricting it one way or the other. In terms of what I wanted to say, sorry, I lost my train of thought. The height of the building, in and of itself, for what was permitted, is in conformance with the accessory structures criteria that was in the zoning ordinance at the time. It just was not in compliance with the height of, it has to be lower than the height of the house. And so that was information that we didn't ask for at the time on the application. So the bottom line is these items have all been addressed moving forward, but this is what led us to where we're at today.
Okay. Does any of the board members have any questions or clarifications from Adam? Okay. We have a specific order of how we're going to handle this. So we're going to have the petitioner come up next and say how you represent this case, come to the mic and say and state your name and add any additional information for this go around, please.
Jacob Burgess, 533 Swan Drive. Yeah. We met last week. I had the builders out. What was discussed with them, you know, I'm as financially invested as I am in this and what could financially work for me doing this. The questions I guess maybe that I would have are the brick, faux brick, whatever that could be. I don't know if it has to be exactly brick. They do make a wainscoting that is a brick. It looks like brick. I'd also had a plan to, if it goes forward, to brick or stone the front of the structure as well. There'd be a cost involved. I'm not sure exactly what that is to adhere to what Adam had come up with. And I don't know what else,
Okay,
maybe what questions you may have for me.
all right. Does anybody here have any questions for him?
Are you okay with what resulted from the meeting, from the neighborhood meeting?
I mean, you know, this, as you guys have found out, this has been a convoluted project for me, something I've never done before. So it's a structure that I need. Unfortunately, we're in this position because of the guidance that I was given into where I could place the structure. It has use for me and what I need in the way that it is presented and given initially, as far as the size and that sort of stuff. I've got a large bus. That's the reason why it is as high as it is, because the overhead door, that's what it fits. With the compromises, I like I said, I'm a cook, I'm not in construction, so I don't know all the logistics that go into everything. But you know, I'm at the mercy of what Adam has come up with and the advice of my lawyer that is with us today. So
Okay,
So your answer is yes, then?
yes.
okay. All right. All right, go ahead and have a seat and we'll probably call you back up if we have any additional questions for you. So the way this will work, it's time now for the public response. That's for, against, comments or concerns. If you were here at last month's meeting and have already voiced your concern, we already have that on record, so there's no need to come up and voice it again. If you have anything new to add, we definitely would like to hear that. We have about a 10-minute window for public response. So when you come to the mic, and I'll call you, when you come to the mic, I want you to say and spell your name and your address. And Alex, could you be our timekeeper for that, please? All right, I'm getting a thumbs up. All right, so do I have anybody on this side that wasn't here last month that would like to come up and say anything? That was not here, because if you've already come up and spoke, we have it on record. So. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you have new comments, absolutely. Yeah. What I'm saying is, yeah. Is there anybody in the first row here? Okay. Come on up. Right. Yes. That you may have had new questions that have come up because of the public meeting.
My name is Dave Fisher. I'm at 545 Swan Drive, Jake's closest neighbor. One thing that Jake just now said, you know, in lieu of the brick coming up 4 feet, he mentioned a look-alike. Now, I think what he's talking about is some kind of a 1/4 inch, 5/16 thick thing that is not brick. I would like to see a sample of that. I mean,
Okay.
I want to do everything I can to help him redo this. Another thing, he's worried about lowering that height. Now, the door itself is all the way to the left of the front of the building. Can you put the front view up there of the building? Okay. If it looks to me like he does not have 5 feet where the door is, if the door was centered, he could get his lowering by 5 foot. And, you know, if he's only got 3 inches clearance on top of that bus, that's enough room. That's about all I got to add.
Okay, thank you. Anybody in the next row?
I'm Mary Beth Sears. I live at 416 Garden Court. I came to the meeting with the neighbors last week. I have concerns about the faux brick. That's not what we agreed if we compromised on this.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody in that row anybody additional in that row? All right, last row, please.
Mike Kelty, 521 Bridge Court. I'm on Jake's side of the bridge. The cul-de-sac to the right, there's 2 cul-de-sacs.
Okay.
So I talked last meeting. I don't have anything to change on that discussion, but there was a meeting to discuss a compromise 2 weeks ago. On Tuesday. I found out about it Monday night at 5 p.m. I have a day job. I work 48 hours a week at a regular job. I can't at 5 p.m. make a decision to not go to work the next morning. I'd like to know what's behind that. What happened with that? Because I have a lot vested in our neighborhood, right? I walk out to my mailbox and I'm looking at the structure. I really wished I could have been there. Whose responsibility was it to schedule that? How to get not done? Anybody? Adam, what happened? That's not coordination.
Can I answer that question?
Yes, please.
I notified the applicant's attorney at least probably 2 weeks prior to when we'd like to have this meeting. And the petitioner did not notify people with a lot of time, but there was a door mailer that went by.
The door mailer came out Tuesday.
Again, the town was not responsible for that.
I'm not assigning blame to you. I'm
So the
asking
town,
for
yeah, the
what
town was,
happened.
so I'm explaining, the town, again, gave that to the attorney. In terms of the scheduling of the meeting is when it was scheduled. We figured a lot of people could attend. So you certainly have the opportunity now.
There was not even an opportunity for me to
Right.
object or request another meeting date.
Well, but the thought process was, certainly we'd be able to capture a lot of the residents at that meeting. And if some couldn't make, I mean, if we had the meeting in the evening or during the day, there would always be a certain segment of people that wouldn't be able to attend. So certainly this is a public meeting where everybody has the opportunity to make their voices heard.
I agree. It was a public meeting. If I'd known about it in advance, I would have been there. Couldn't do that. So enough on that. I think I explained my position. I wasn't there, but I did run into a couple of neighbors that night. And what I heard was a little different from what was presented here. And I just would like from the neighbors that were there, is what was presented tonight fair and accurate? I'm sorry? So
Adam, was this meeting, was there minutes taken or is it on record? We as the board were not allowed to attend that meeting per law. So we have no insight of what went on and what was discussed. So it's really hard for me to speak to that.
and I wasn't there, so I'm asking the people who were there, is the proposal that Adams put together on behalf of Jake accurate? I understood that nobody wanted the compromise. That's
I tell you
what,
what.
as a priority, nobody wanted to compromise. But if there was no alternative based on your interpretation of what could be allowed, then they would unwillingly accept the 5 terms that are stated. And
Okay.
I didn't really get that impression from listening to the report that Adam put together. So
Okay, I'm going to, for the record, I'll have other members of the audience that were there, if they would like to speak to that meeting and what they heard and if it differed, so we can have that on record. That's the only way this board is
Okay.
going to
and
know,
that's fair. Thank
Um,
you.
because we have no insight. The 5 of us don't have any insight on that.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, anybody in this, is there anybody else in that last row? Okay, is anybody in this section? Please come up.
Yes, my name is Jim Anderson. Anderson, spelled like the city. I live at 517 Swan Drive here in Fortville. I just have 2 questions, basically, for Adam and for the board. I note here on the petition, the application for the variance. The structure size is 40 by 80, which would be 3,200 square feet. And my question, Adam, is the limitation, the current limitation limited to of the square footage area of the structure limited to 50% of the primary structure? Is that the current limitation in force in the zoning ordinance at the present time?
At the present time, yes.
Okay, so if the board grants this petition for variance, the size, the square footage size, that would be a significant, in my opinion, variance from the current limitation.
That would be accurate.
Now, the other question I have is on the direct your attention to the first page of the variance. The proposed use, it's cold storage. Well, I'd like to understand what is going to be stored in this building, in this structure.
Excuse, we've got a minute left on the 10 minutes.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? I think I'm going to get all these answered. I'll have him back up here in a minute. I'll get
Okay.
these answered for you.
Okay,
Thank you. I have about a minute left. Is there anything new? You'll have to come up to the mic, please. Just say and spell your name and
Robert Gibson, TGIDSON 518 Swan Drive. In the ordinances, it also mentions that no pole barns or metal buildings are allowed in zone residential 2.5. And that was in addition to the size. So
yes, that is our current zoning. That is correct. All right. All right. Well, we're going to close out public response and we're going to move on to government officials. Is there a government official here that would like to say anything for or against? I see one in the back coming up. You know the drill.
Connie Davis, Fortville Town Council, 402 East Mill. I was at the meeting and yes, I think they would have rather had it tore down, but their explanation was they wanted Jake to be financially whole if it was tore down. And there's no way that that can happen. So the result of that is this, what Adam suggests here. And I personally feel like the height difference doesn't really matter at this point in the whole big picture of things. So you got a big building there, regard at 5 feet, it's going to make a lot of difference. But I feel like, I personally feel like he should follow the same ordinance that we had originally with those qualifications based on what's happened here just for that purpose. I don't know that, I'm still a little bit I don't really understand if we can or not. It was kind of left open. But yeah, I feel like they would rather have it tore down, but there was no gain for Jake to do it that way. And this was the alternative for that. So I just wanted to make clear that people that weren't there would know that.
All right, thank you. Okay, we have time for the petitioner to come back up, and then we're going to go through some of these questions that were brought up. One is the brick that they are asking about.
I don't know what I don't know. And that's kind of how this whole story started. I don't
Okay.
know. I've only thought that, you know, the faux brick or whatever, for me, that's just a financial thing. You know, I'm not here to, you know, said we all love that neighborhood. So I don't know what that material is.
Okay.
But
I might be able to help you a little bit on that. So
Okay.
faux brick can actually be fake brick, or it
Mhm.
can actually be a real brick that's slim set. So unless you have a brick ledge on your structure, which you do not, because that's not the way that
right.
pole barn foundation is set up,
Mhm.
you would have to put one in. So I do think there may be a possibility of doing what they call the slim set.
Yeah.
It's a metal backer board, and then it's real brick, but it's thin and it
Yeah.
doesn't require a foundation. So for the audience, it looks just like it is real brick, but it just doesn't need the foundation, and it looks just like a brick veneer when it is complete with mortar.
And onto I know the other, you know, with the meeting, Adam reached out. I mean, when he said he would coordinate, I didn't know that I was responsible for getting out to you. I was out of town until a few days before I got it to you guys. That was nothing other than when he said he'd coordinate. I thought it would be a text message, email, something along to you guys. But I didn't know I was responsible to coordinate the notice as well. So that's where that came in, is that I didn't know I was responsible for that as well. So I did it at the earliest convenience that I had. And that was unfortunately the day before, you know, 12 or more showed up for the meeting that did receive it.
Okay. And then one other question that I heard was, what does cold storage mean to you?
Non-perishable items or non-perishable items. So anything from cars to jet skis to boats to, you know, I've got a garage full of grills and my Blackstone. I mean, my garage is full of stuff. I'm kind of a collector, so I've got a lot of collectibles that I don't have space in my house for. So just things that, you know,
An unconditioned storage
yeah, just stuff that
area.
doesn't need to be hot. It doesn't matter if it's hot or cold.
Okay. All right. Does the board have any clarification questions for the petitioner? Okay, you can have a seat.
I guess,
Yes.
I mean, if we're here, you know, you said brick is stone acceptable as well, as far as if there's, you know, to make it look aesthetically pleasing. I've got a friend who deals in stone. His initial recommendation to me is that, you know, that brick doesn't really exist anymore. So it would be similar, but it's not going to be exact. And so those are the things that I am aware of and my thing. And like I said, if it goes forward in the past, then a mixture between stone and brick is what I envision. But I think that while we're here, I might as well get that clarified.
Okay, and I know that Adam made on one of his recommendations, he was talking about 4-foot wainscoting on all 4 sides, but then you mentioned something about the face of it being
Yeah.
complete brick.
Just more, I mean, you know, like I said, I think that to be aesthetically pleasing and to mimic the neighborhood in as much as possible, you know, there's large stone houses, brick houses, you know, that sort of stuff. So I know that there would be some attractive looking stone. And then, like I said, I'm not sure what arborvitaes are, but you
Pine
know,
trees,
palm trees.
evergreens.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, you know, between that and hardscaping, you know, my idea was to, like I said, make it as attractive as possible. And, you know, I feel like I've done that with all my projects, either at my house or in town, is that I really don't skip steps on trying to make something, you know, putting lipstick on a pig, if anything.
so for this height that the recommendation is to be lowered, was it
5 feet.
5 feet? I didn't write that down.
You know, I
5
feel
feet.
like that's kind of throwing good money after bad.
Do you
It's,
feel like you can still revamp the placement of your door to still be able to get?
we're kind of piggybacking off of Tanya maybe a little bit, that what's 5 feet? I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if 5 feet would be lower than the house. I got what's that? Yeah, so I mean, 5 feet, what's 5 feet? You know, we're still missing the variance. So with that, what I'd say is, you know, like I said, I feel like that's throwing good money after bad when it still wouldn't adhere to it. It's a large, tall structure, 5 feet. You know, I pulled the contractors out the other day. He put a laser on it. And to do that, it really kind of changes where the pitch goes and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, I mean, it's really going to be another $15,000 for me to lower it 5 feet when why does that? It's big as it is. I don't know what 5 feet is going to do or how that would change it. It's still shorter than my immediate neighbor to my west's house at the current height. So the 2-story house next to mine, it's still shorter, I believe. The Tanner and yeah, the Wilson's house.
Okay, all right, thank you. Does the board have any questions amongst ourselves here? Alex, can we extend another public comment?
Sure, you have the discretion.
All right, board, do we agree to another public comment?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, yes, please. Just make sure we have it on record.
Diana Kelty, Kelty, 521 Bridge Court. So if we come to a compromise, or if you prove the building as it stands, what happens when Jake leaves? What are those new owners going to, you know, think, oh, I bought this house and now I have a 3,200 square foot pole barn in the middle of an addition that I can do with whatever I want. So what happens when he sells 2 years from now, 10 years from now? I'm stuck there. I've been there for 15 years, as most of these people have been here longer. So what's going to prevent that new owner from doing whatever the heck he wants to do? You know, and then I just have another comment. I'm not on social media, but it was on social media, and it was actually Jake's mom who posted it, that no, the people who buy your house will want a pole barn too, or rent space from Jake, as no house is big enough. That came from his own mom. And I love Jane Burgess. I like Jake. I have no qualms. But what happens in the near future?
Right.
That's
All right, thank you. Okay, well, we're right back where we were last month, where we will need to make a decision here.
There's one more comment.
From, oh, I'm sorry. Because I thought I had gotten to everybody. All right. And this will be the last one. We need to wrap this up at this point.
And mine's just an observation and a comment. Denise compliment. My husband and I live at 520 Swan Drive, and we've been there for many years, since 1986. I think all of us, I think we deserve, as members of that community and the members of Fortville, to know how this happened, how we got here. We've been going to town council meetings for a year now, expressing our concerns, requests, thoughts about the whole thing. Jake knows this. I'm not saying anything Jake hasn't heard. So how did we get here? Is it normal for the zoning board to leave it up to the residents to make a decision this big? Did this just slip through the cracks? Was it too far along with construction by the time it came to you? I think we all are owed an explanation. Either way this turns out, I think it would make everybody in the crowd feel better if you all could give us the respect to explain your decision, your actions, either way it goes.
All right, thank you. Adam, I could try to answer that, or
I can weigh in as well if you'd like. It's pretty straightforward, and I think that we have
thank you.
over the last many months explained exactly what happened. And Adam, I think, summarized maybe even this evening. Initially, Jake submitted his plans, his builder and engineer signed a certification in those plans, give or take a year ago, that everything was in compliance with the town's code. And I believe there was also a line about any other local requirements, which would be the homeowner association. Town looked at that, relied on that certification, ultimately discovered that that was inaccurate, that the height of the building was an issue. That gave rise to communications with Jake and his builder about the discrepancy between the certification and the then discovered issue with the height and the need for a variance. Unfortunately, Jake had already gotten pretty far along with the construction and has the structure out there as it is today. We discussed with Jake over the course of a few months options, get a variance, tear it down, drop the height 5 feet. Ultimately, just with the amount of time that went past, and Ms. Compliment, I think you were in the council meetings in the audience during this time. So we're talking, Christmas time, December, January last year. Ultimately, the decision was made to revoke the building permit that was issued, the initial building permit. And then enforcement letters went out to Jake saying, hey, we need to do something about this. You can file a variance, which he ultimately did, a variance request, so that he could continue building the structure and get whatever relief the BZA would deem appropriate. So that's the path that we're on now, and why we're all here tonight. We're here a month ago. Is it common to, for the BZA to suggest that parties get together and see if there's a compromise? 100% it is. This is an issue. It's a small town, and even if it weren't a small town, I'm on Mr. Plopper's side of the table a lot in Marion County in Indianapolis, which isn't exactly a small town. And it is not uncommon in that forum to have the BZA or planning staff to say in the middle of the process, let's continue things and get together with your neighbors and see if you can work it out, and then come back to us and say whether you did or not. So doing nothing different here. So that is common. And that is not, to be clear, the BZA or the town or Adam shirking any sort of responsibility and putting this on the neighbors or on Jake. It's trying to find a path forward so that maybe not everybody, that's the nature of a compromise. Nobody gets everything that they want. I heard tonight that at the meeting, at least some of the neighbors would like the building to be torn down. I'm sure Jake would like to be able to build the building the way that it was originally approved. A compromise and what staff has recommended tonight is somewhere in the middle. So that's how we got here. That's where we are. And now it's up to the BZA to decide which way to go.
All right, thank you, Alex. All right, do we have any discussion here on the board? I have a question to, I don't know if it's Adam or Alex. So when we are considering this variance tonight, we're considering it with eyes of viewing this as a new, never built pole barn, or are we looking at the history as well?
I think I'll field that because it's really more legal in nature. I think that it is appropriate to consider all the facts before you, and you should. And some of the facts before you are what I just kind of went through. We got a building out there, and there are more than a few reasons of why it exists and has remained unfinished. And staff has recommended, at least Adam and planning staff's one way to move forward. And so, I think that it is the fairness of the situation and the timeline and what has gone on is part of your consideration. And you've got, what you were considering, though, of course, is Jake's petition for variance and the the variances that are on there, 4 or 5 or however many there are. And you can decide as a board what to do with each of those, whether to grant some, not grant some. And then also it's important, and just for the public, and you all know this is the board, that staff's recommendation is just that, a recommendation, and you're free to take it and adopt it as presented, modify it, or ignore it altogether and do something that the majority of the board feels appropriate in this situation.
Okay, thank you. I know you keep referring to these. We only have one variance in front of us to allow a metal pole barn garage as proposed. I know, is that a,
You mean the ballot?
yeah. So are there other, we talked about these recommendations or conditions to be put on there. Is there any more than that we're looking at tonight?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, I thought we had 5 items listed at one. That's why I'm asking.
But I think there are conditions on the variance.
There are 5 conditions. So
Yeah.
the what those up? Sure. So the recommendation is to approve the variances subject to the following conditions, which are those 5 items that are listed there.
All right.
And can I ask a
Go ahead,
question?
please.
So out of clarification, these 5 items basically came from the meeting that you all had together, correct?
Correct, with the exception of number 5. The 5th one, I crafted based on the concern that we've heard from the residents, and rightfully so, of the building sitting out there in an unfinished state for a long period of time. So the thought process was to give Mr. Burgess and his builder enough time to complete the building, but also to ensure that it's resolved. So for instance, what we wanted to, lastly, what I wanted to avoid, frankly, was a scenario by which these 4 conditions are approved. And let's say the variances are approved, the 4 conditions are approved, but then there's no time frame for getting this done. So I felt it was in everybody's best interest to have a reasonable time frame.
All right. Okay, yeah, we heard that, and yes, we heard that. As much as, and my comments here are going to be directed to the board. So as much as I feel that we definitely need to come up with a compromise, I don't feel like these conditions go far enough. That's just my feeling. No, I can't take any more comments right now. This,
Can I ask a question
yeah, go ahead.
to Alex? If we don't come up with a decision tonight, what
happens?
is the residents and Jake, where's their next step? Is it the town council or is it?
Victoria?
So it's not the town council. I mean, the BZA needs to take action. I mean, vote to approve or deny it. And then the law provides interested parties, which that's a term of art, to appeal the BZA's decision to circuit court. So there's judicial review. It wouldn't be a council issue or staff. It would then go to the courts.
So Amanda, to your question, I guess my concern
with not going far enough is that it seems what we heard is that a lot of folks would like to see it torn down. And so at what point is a compromise going to be good enough?
Well,
If
I
are we gonna
agree.
get to the point to where if you know, he's got 90-10. I mean, that's the concern. How far do we drag?
compromise, right?
We have to make a decision at some point.
Feel like just lowering it 5 feet isn't much of a compromise for the neighbors. It is a compromise for Jake, and I understand there is a financial burden to anything we did rule on tonight. That's not lost on me. And again, this is my opinion. I would like to see, yes, allow him to still consider a pole barn. I would like to definitely see it lowered, the 5 feet, but I'd also like to see the footprint cut way back. That structure is so terribly large. I also think it should meet the current ordinances of height, setbacks, windows, window trim, and definitely one of the recommendations tonight on that, the brick. I just don't think the conditions, looking at that neighborhood and seeing from the pictures, the size of that. And we're going on, I mean, if the first building permit is now null and void, it's pretty much like starting again and trying to come up with a compromise.
Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, the size, the footprint was introduced in 23, correct? The size of the building was not a consideration.
Correct. So to be crystal clear, is that under the prior rules, a 3,200 square foot accessory building as a metal building in that neighborhood was not prohibited.
So to be, had the builder met the height requirement, we would not be here today, and that 3,200 square foot building would be there.
Right,
is
that is,
now.
that is correct.
So that's where I think we can't toss the context out that this was started prior and it's
Agree to a point. I guess my sticking point is what, and I don't know if you're able to tell me this, Adam, what other pieces were not in compliance at the time of the stop work order?
Just the height, as far as the Fortville zoning ordinance is concerned. The application, as Alex pointed out, the builder attested that they would comply with the zoning ordinance and any covenants as well. However, on the covenants issue, the town has no involvement in that.
You have a clarification question? Can I clarify that?
I do have a clarification question. The last item that's on there, which is the petitioner or the designee shall file a complete building permit to be finished by December 1st. Is that even doable? I guess is a question, to be completed by the 1st of December.
Can I have the petitioner back up to answer some of these questions?
I can address that if it would please the board. So we have been in touch with Blitz Builders, who was the original builder that signed and filed the application for the original permit. They have come out, and I know there was a concern at the meeting we had last week about the structural integrity of the framing that exists right now. No concern was raised after their visit. So what is standing presently is structurally sound, as to my knowledge. Jake is getting estimates from them to complete the structure pursuant to the recommendations of Adam. And he's he's going to get estimates from some others as well in an attempt to control the costs, because there is significant overrun with the one particular condition to lower the height. However, until we have some action from the board, we don't really know which direction to pursue. We feel that the most economical path forward would be to complete the structure with whatever conditions would be acceptable to the board. But we can't get timing and cost on all of that until we have decision. And if I may, just for a moment, as far as the meeting last week, I'll take blame for anybody's perceived lack of timely notice of that meeting. As much as I like working with Jake, he's not my only client. And so my letter was a little late to be delivered, but it's 100% on me. And I can assure the neighbors that was not by design. We tried to encourage any and all interested parties to attend that meeting, and felt like we had a good turnout. So with that said, the neighbors were very open to that dialogue and trying to arrive at whatever a compromise means in the context for the board. Legally, I don't think it has a lot of meaning, really. There's no HOA. Perhaps the interest that everyone's shown throughout this process might inspire an HOA to be created so that problems like this can be avoided going forward. But I feel like that Adam has put forward a very fair and reasonable set of conditions to attach to this project and allow it to be completed in a way that might be aesthetically pleasing to everyone, which would certainly be an improvement over an unfinished framed structure that we've all been living with for a year plus now. But I think as far as timing of completion, I think by December 1st, that's a very reasonable time frame. I think if there was a favorable vote tonight, Jake could certainly meet that timeline, and I would work with him to ensure that happens.
All right, thank you. All right, well, we're to the part where, unless anybody has any more questions or for clarifications for Adam or the petitioner, I'm going to ask a board member if anybody's ready to make a motion to approve with conditions, or deny this variance.
I'll make a motion. We have a case number.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah,
You got it.
that is very, okay. I'll make a motion to approve with conditions, variance 07-2023 at 533 Swan Drive, to meet all of the staff recommendations. The one extra note I would put in there is that Jake mentioned potential stone mixture on the front, that is consulted with the town and or the neighbors on condition 2.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion on this motion? All right, let's go to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm opposed. So 1, 2, do you need to do a roll call on that, Andy?
Can if you want.
Okay, we're going to go do a roll call on this. Nathan?
Aye.
Rick. Aye.
Amanda.
No.
Earl. Aye. Dan.
Yes or no?
Yes.
All right, motion carries. All right. Let's see, Motion passes. Thank you for coming for tonight's meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Of course, there's nobody opposed. Don't forget to fill out your paperwork and send it down to Andy. Thank you all for attending.
We just put staff recommendations. And then, so we don't spell it all
Yeah,
five.
I would say staff recommendations plus stone allowed.
Stone allowed for. Yeah, okay, stone allowed for wainscoting or? So all staff recommendations plus. Decorative stone under consultation. What's that? Yeah. Yeah.
So how did we word that? So we're all the same, probably should all say the same thing.
Yep.
No, no, I
Oh,
know. I'm not saying agree.
All right, thanks, Alex.
It should probably be worded.
Thanks, Nick.